Welcome to Laptop Radio. Today's topic is nanostructure-based tech, including COVID-19 detection. And we have Waqas Khalid with us, and he is the CEO of Jadoo Technology and a researcher at UC Berkeley. Hello.
Hi, how you doing, Michelle?
I'm doing good. Where are you right now?
I am in Berkeley. This is where the home is, and I actually do all the research work and stuff out here in Berkeley.
Awesome. I love Berkeley, but I'm,
Oh,
I'm
it's a
also
beautiful campus.
very biased.
Hey, Berkeley, though, the best campuses in the world.
Yeah, go Cal, go Cal. Okay, let's begin with tell us your story.
Well, I am a scientist on campus and I teach physics at the physics department. And I have developed a very unique technology platform that comprises of carbon nanotube based nanostructures. And I've been developing the technology over the last 9 years. I did a lot of this work while I was in Sweden, where I worked at Chalmers in Gothenburg. And the interesting part is that in Sweden, the inventor owns the IP and not the institution. So the patents that we filed for the technology that I developed are under my name. And then from there, I moved to Berkeley, worked with Lawrence Berkeley National Labs with Paul Elvisados, who's the director of LBL, and started working in graphene-based devices. And since 2012, I've been in the Berkeley ecosystem in various positions. I have been project manager. Then we had a relationship that established between Chalmers and Berkeley or Sweden and the Bay Area, how the research exchange program could be set up. Then I worked with Volvo Car Company, connecting them with Berkeley ecosystem and for AI and machine learning kind of avenues in front. And now I am at the physics department where we are developing remote labs for pedagogical purposes, along with obviously teaching physics to some brilliant undergraduate minds in this part of the world. And obviously I continue doing my research work where we established a complete infrastructure around the technology that I developed. So it's not only just carbon nanotube based nanostructure devices that we've built, but we've actually built a complete infrastructure around it, including microfluidics and electrical contact holders that we built. Then we built our own custom electronics for extracting data from these devices. And we've also built AI machine learning based data analytics software that takes the data from these devices and crunches the number and gives you the information in a much more comprehensive fashion. And I have a team of around 40 undergraduate students that work with me on this project on campus through a powerful undergraduate research program on campus called Undergraduate Research Apprentice Program. And I have like almost 150 students that went through this program with me over the last several years. And it's one of a very famous and well-reputed program amongst undergraduates because, it's such a multidisciplinary and multifaceted kind of research that I do. And mostly the undergraduates don't have exposure to this kind of broad sense of work. Usually they are shoved in labs and they just kind of perform the work that is assigned to them. But I give them an opportunity to kind of expose themselves to an array of different concepts that a bioengineering student will never get exposed to, or a business school student is never going to expose to. And that kind of broadens their horizon in how to look at research and how to basically charter their career path as they move forward in their quest in their lives. So that's like a quick blurb about my engagement.
Sounds really awesome. And tell us about Jadoo Technology.
So Jadoo Technologies is an S corp filed in California, and it is a interface that I use for commercialization of the technology that I've developed. It is unique protocol and process that we engage with national labs and academia and apply for SBIRs and federal agencies like NASA so that we could utilize the technology that we've built and kind of mature it to a higher TRL level so that we could take it to commercial applications. And you realize that taking an experiment from a lab in an academic environment into an actual product is a huge journey that people don't kind of understand how much time. It's not like a software code that you write in a coffee shop and you just need your laptop to do that. We're talking about real hardcore new technological platform that has never been utilized in the past before, and to actually validate the technology at all different scales and then produce it on a platform that could be utilized outside a lab environment is a daunting task that requires a lot of capital. Any biotech company spends 50 plus million bucks to get any product into the commercial zone. What I have been able to accomplish is a very unique process where we leverage already existing resources to mitigate the scientific mitigate risk and push the needle forward of technological advancements and mitigate as much risk as possible using already existing ecosystem in the Bay Area and around the world, to be honest, and essentially develop a system that has reduced the risk scientifically, and it could be then taken to production or commercialization process. So that's what Jadoo Technology kind of does. It's like an interface that allows us to apply for grants and engage with different parts of the existing ecosystem for tech dev.
Awesome. And let's talk a little about nanostructure-based tech. What is that?
Graphene is a big buzz, right? So everybody talks about graphene. They got a Nobel Prize out of it as well. And it's essentially a single atomic layer thick sheet of carbon molecules that are organized in a hexagonal pattern. If you take that sheet and roll it into a tube form, you have carbon nanotubes. Carbon nanotubes are a beautiful material. They're like graphene in a tube form, technically. It was the darling of the research world before graphene came along. And over the last 35 plus years, $50+ billion have been spent on carbon nanotube-based devices. And unfortunately, not a lot of commercial products came out of that. And now people are using graphene or carbon nanotubes as material they mix with composites, right? Like polymers and stuff like that to create hockey sticks or like sports equipment, lighter, faster, stronger, and things like that. But it never lived up to its huge potential. And partly the reasons were that it was very difficult to control the production of these devices on scale and pattern them and the whole 9 yard, merging them with the silicon-based CMOS processes that they have. So that's what nanotechnology or nanostructures are. What we discovered and developed over the years is that I figured out a process where we could grow these carbon nanotubes as forests, essentially, nanoforests, I would say, in a very defined, ordered format that have their own unique electrical connections as well. So now you could have an array of these structures formed on a surface that could be individually electrically, optically, and thermally addressed, which kind of allows now a whole Pandora of applications, because you have a lot of power disposed at your design now that you can actually address these structures electrically, optically, and chemically and thermally. So you can get all sorts of information from these things and utilize them to do all sorts of sensing applications and the whole array of different applications that come along with that.
Awesome.
So it's like unlocking the potential of these nanostructures and unleashing the power of nanotechnology at its best.
Okay, so this year there's a pandemic, and as you know, there is something called COVID-19. And our numbers in the US has surpassed 8 million. Almost 9. Tell us about COVID-19 detection.
How do we detect any biomolecule? What people do right now is that we've actually done a lot of research on COVID, and we know its genome, and people have used different sections of COVID-19 RNA for detection. What they do is they first of all have a sample, usually a nose swab or now spit sample, and then they lyse the COVID-19 virus in that sample using a simple buffer. So what it does is that it breaks the membrane of the virus and allows the genetic or the RNA out of the virus into the solution. Then they chop up that RNA, and different pieces of RNA are floating in a solution. They bind them into a purification process, extract them, and once they are out, they can then do a PCR step where they amplify that signal, attach fluorophores to them, and use optical methodologies to fluoresce these fluorophores. And based on the light that they emit, we can detect COVID-19. And that's how the detection works. Usually, the optical methodologies that are used are a little bigger in size because of their form factors and the energy requirements. And companies have come up with almost like a desktop size or a size of a loaf of bread or something like that kind of detection protocols. But the problem is that when you have to do a PCR step, and PCR is required because the sensitivity of these optical-based detectors is not large enough, that you have to replicate the sample enough that the optical measurements have enough sensitivity to the light emitted that they could detect these things. And that step essentially is a roadblock that takes 20-30 minutes per test. And that's a detection limitation right now. Companies are coming with other tests that are like a P-stick kind of test where you can get your test right away. And a lot of different companies are working on that. I won't name them right here, but you can obviously Google them and find out. But the idea there is that those tests are not super sensitive as RNA tests that you could have. So based on the technology that we've built in the past, we said, okay, let's focus focus on detecting COVID-19 RNA. And this work was DNA detection using nanotube was done by NASA Ames scientists back in 2004. They published papers there that you can functionalize a surface with these RNA or DNA molecules and then detect the hybridization happening. And the technology, it has been around, but the problem was the commercialization of such things. Then there are companies using graphene-based sensors for the same thing, and CRISPR-attached graphene molecules, graphene sensors trying to detect COVID-19. What we did is we shrank the whole ecosystem in the palm of your hand. So we developed a device that is the size of a credit card. It can have a cartridge, which is the size of a US quarter, and it plugs into that credit card size reader. You spit on it, and you can get your COVID-19 detection done in a matter of only 3 minutes. And the power that is unleashed is from nanotechnology based devices where we do not need to do a PCR reaction because our sensors are so sensitive, and the technology that we use to do the detection is so precise that we could detect attomolar concentration of RNA using our technology, which is essentially more than twice or three times more than the concentration that you get from a spit or a nasal swab. So we don't need the amplification step, and hence we can reduce the time. And given the form factor of the device is so small, and given that the device is actually so cheap, that we believe that everybody could have a COVID detection card that they own, and then you can do a test before you hop on a flight or go to a football game or go to a classroom in a school or university. And if you are clear, you could go in, and if you have COVID, then obviously you could be isolated, and you can quarantine yourself if you are infected positive, so that we don't have to shut down the whole economy, but only the people who are infected are quarantined rather than everybody else on this planet.
Awesome. Awesome. And do you guys have any competitors?
Obviously everybody's doing
Everyone is a
COVID-19.
competitor.
Everybody's doing COVID-19 detection. There's I think FDA has 150 to 200 EUA approved devices that they can use that and all that. So the technology will always rise based on the price point, the sensitivity, and the selectivity. And given we've built this whole ecosystem in such a way that we've mitigated a lot of scientific risk, and we just developed, and with the small grant that we got from Citrus at UC Berkeley and also from UCSF, we've built an MVP with which we are actually calibrating the system now. And once we have the data from our compact device, then we would obviously go for EUA approvals and enter the market with that. We have companies lined up for mass production as well, because you got to realize that even if you're doing this thing on a small scale, we need tens of millions of tests a month. So to have that kind of rampant scale production, even if you're using a small 100 microliter of these chemicals and assays, they rack up and they add up into gallons and gallons of these chemicals that you need essentially to mass produce these things. So there's a huge logistics issue there as well that we're trying to tackle as well. So there's just too many different moving pieces of the puzzle and too much noise and buzz around this whole thing that you have to make sure that the product that you develop is just not another big buzzword kind of thing, but it's a real technological solution that is great for this pandemic and would be a perfect solution for any future such threats or catastrophes that may happen.
Yeah, but what are some ways that we can discern between different projects? How does it stand out from the rest? So more of the advantages, and how can people discern the differences?
The fundamental differences are the speed, the cost, and the form factor, right? So rather than taking a sample, shipping it to somewhere, and then they could do the test, because the test equipment is so large and bulky and expensive that it cannot be produced in such a way that everybody could own their personalized COVID testing device, is a challenge. So we circumvent that problem, and we can give you a personalized testing card with which you can do your COVID test on the fly. You could be anywhere, it connects to your phone, and then you get your data, and that could be uploaded on a cloud, and you could do contact tracing, and the whole other analytics world opens up with that if people are okay with their privacy permissions and stuff like that. So that's one thing that you do, that the testing equipment is now shrunk in the palm of your hand. Second thing is the cartridge that we use for testing is so powered by nanotechnology-based sensors, but in the form factor of a disposable cartridge that is the size of a US quarter or something like that is another unique aspect. That rather than taking your sample and then shipping it, you could take your sample and get your data instantly. So that, and the time required to get the data is like 3 minutes, right? So now you have shrunken the timeline for getting the data as well. So you could get tested at an airport, and imagine if there's like 500 people and you have 250 of these test cartridges, testing readers available. You could test all of them in a matter of 10-15 minutes rather than have one person tested every 15 minutes. And if you have 50 of these devices, you still have to have fill up a plane of 300 passengers. It's going to take you a very long time to do that. So, and then the price point of these devices, we could do the cartridge price between 10 to 15 bucks. So that is extremely affordable. And you can get the cartridge done every day, almost every other day, if you are in a high influx of people moving back and forth. So all these factors add huge preposition of advantage in our technology compared to everything else, right? Even if you do a p-stick test, nobody knows how accurate it is and stuff like that. You have no electronic logger or data collection system that will say, hey, you did a test yesterday at 5 o'clock in Starbucks on 5th and Center Street in San Francisco. And the next test that you did was 4 days before that in Sacramento at blah, blah, blah street, right? But
Yep.
our technology allows you to capture the geographical information, and the accuracy of the tests are very high as well. So you could actually have a log, electronic log of your testing, and obviously your geological locations will then help contact tracing and inform people who came in contact with somebody who got sick and stuff like that. So the price point and the electronic capabilities that we put in on these devices, all of these things are really fascinating. And we're not the only people doing that. There's a lot of other companies doing that, like I said, right? Caltech came out with a handheld COVID-19 detection device similar to ours using graphene, but they need a PCR though, because the sensors are not sensitive enough as the technology that we've built. So it's an amalgamation of technologies and years of technological development that was always touted as, hey, you have a Swiss Army knife, you could do everything under the sun, but you have to pick one application to do that. Well, guess what? Pandemic happened, and that allowed us to focus on that one particular application that was required.
Yeah.
And once that is done, you could then obviously enter market and help save a lot of lives and open up economies with this kind of technological innovation.
What are some of your asks right now?
So asks, as in next steps?
Yeah, next steps. So are you guys fundraising? What
Yes.
targeting a certain investor?
Usually, like I said, biotech device usually has to raise 50 million bucks to go to market. In our case, we could probably do that in scale production at around 10 to 15 million dollars, because a lot of risk mitigation, scientific validation has been done at already existing academic and federal and obviously publicly available resources that utilize to the tech dev, right? So we are in the phase of getting MVPs validated for EUA approvals, and that will probably cost somewhere from 2 to 3 million bucks. And after that, we need another 10 to 15 million dollars for scale production. We have resources lined up, but yes, we are looking for investors that would line with our mission and our vision to actually scale this technology and help save lives and economies around the world.
Awesome. And is there anything else you wanted to share that I have not asked you?
I think what I would like to share is the precision and the persistence. And as a scientist and researcher, there is a huge swing happening now on the commercialization of these great technologies developed in academic labs and institutions, right? A lot of industry is moving away from doing R&D in-house and outsourcing the R&D work, and they'd like to buy companies and startups with innovation so that they don't have to take the brunt of innovation. So I think a message that I would like to leave is that, we are at a crossroads of a global change in thinking, essentially. And I think innovation is at its forefront right now. We live in a wonderful time where we have the capability with the computing powers and IoTs and renewable energy sources and all this great AI machine learning algorithms that we've developed, that the future would be defined by the technologies we build today. And we are at a junction where our stuff today will essentially define tomorrow. So, there's a whole lot of innovation happening in academic institutions and all these kind of incubators and facilitators that will allow people not to just have startups coming only on the software side, but on the hardware side as well, of how we need all this infrastructure around us to build a better future. People should never give up on their visions and tasks and always keep on trying. And one way or another, some things work out, and then you're a triumphant entrepreneur by the end of the day. So that's what I would like to give. All the resources are there. You just have to seek them out and make things happen.
Okay, and what is that one piece of wisdom or advice that you have for the community?
We as humans are a very resilient being on this planet. Our actions will essentially make this a beautiful planet for us all to live on, or it could destroy it and make it a very dangerous place to live in. So essentially, the power lies within us as humans of what kind of world we want to live in. So I would like to say that, hey, look for the greater inner good in you, for not just your own personal interest, but for the interest of humanity and society, because everybody's going to die. And when you die, nobody's going to remember you unless you do something epic in life that changed or transformed the world, right? So be that change and be that vision that kind of globally impacts the lives of not just yourself but millions of other people around you. And if you live with these principles, even if you make something very small and make a very localized impact, believe it or not, it has a global effect down the road. So that's like my advice to everybody, that please stay positive and happy and healthy, because life is too short to look at negative things and suffering. Always work for strive for the betterment of everybody around you.
That's very profound. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, it's fun. Bye bye.
Bye bye.